Hello. So I've tried multiple times to upload my chapter 391 and 392 reviews for Hunter x Hunter, and they keep getting taken down. And I was hit with a copyright strike. So for these chapter reviews, I'm just gonna change up how I do them. Normally, I'd go into detail about everything that's going on, all while showing panels to not only help you see what I'm talking about, but also prove my points. But considering that isn't allowed, what I'll be doing is giving a pretty short and basic summary of the chapter and share any thoughts I had. Unfortunately, these chapter reviews might not be as entertaining as I'd like, but my commentary is all the same. I'm still really annoyed though, because I made some pretty good videos and I can't post them. But anyway, let's get into it. So chapter 391 picks up right where 390 ended. Henry, Lynch, and Zakuro just got done fighting some Highly members, and Henry just showed off his Nen ability to kill 2 soldiers. Henry sends Lynch and Zakuro to look for Hisoka, but he says once they find him, don't do anything until he arrives. As Zakuro and Lynch are walking around on their own, we see a new ability from Zakuro. He can send out his blood like a swarm of mosquitoes, and each drop of blood acts independently and will notify Zakuro if they find someone suspicious. Each drop of blood will work tirelessly until they either run out of aura, which take 30 to 40 minutes, or until they're destroyed. They're easy to destroy, just squishing them with your fingers seems to be enough. But whether they run out of aura or are destroyed, the little Nen blood creatures just turn back into normal blood. This ability is really cool to me because a point I'll be making a good bit in this video is although a lot of these Mafia members don't have the strongest or craziest abilities we've ever seen, almost every single one of their abilities are absolutely perfect and powerful for the world they live in, that place being a world of crime. There will be more examples, but for Zakuro, it's just a really convenient and powerful ability to be able to use his blood to search large areas and do so pretty inconspicuously. And then we have Lynch, whose ability in simple terms is she will ask you a question and then punch you, and as long as the punch lands and she's conscious, whoever she hits will be forced to answer truthfully. Not only that, but Lynch is the only one who can hear the answer. So Lynch and Zakuro's plan is to use his blood to find someone suspicious, then use Lynch's ability to ask if they're Hisoka. Then we move on to Henry, who's chasing after one of the Highly that got away. And the way he goes about finding her is so smart. So Henry starts asking people if he can see their cameras, because he wants to see if in their photos they caught the girl he's looking for. He checks a couple cameras until he finds a picture with the girl in it. Then, in short, Henry knows the area she went into has one entrance, so if the Highly is hiding in there, then they'd be monitoring who comes and goes. So Henry uses his Nen ability to turn the camera he was looking at into a cat. Now, a refresher on Henry's Nen ability, he can turn any object partially or fully into an animal. The animal also retains the ability of the original object. So Henry plays it safe and sets the cat on a statue and has it recording. His goal is to see if Marina herself is in the area the girl went into, and he also hopes to identify all Highly members. Henry then walks off and starts thinking to himself. He says how because Prince Sorainek basically no longer supports Marina, she's more or less free to do whatever she wants. He also says how he isn't sure what Marina's goal is, but it seems like she's starting a rebellion of the second class. In other words, it appears Marina is rebelling against the royal family and all that they are. We then see 3 Highly members who want to jump Henry. They feel confident that they can win because it would be a 3v1. The 3 of them are Paduli, who's level 29, Corole, who's level 22, and Tavalaris, who's level 24. So all 3 of them have unlocked their Nen abilities. Corole says that they need to be careful because Henry is using N, and they'll be detected if they go within 5 meters of him. Paduli says he'll go in first to create an opening for the other 2 to attack. Paduli starts chasing after Henry and activates his ability called Lethal Weapon Disorder. Basically, he can turn his right hand into any weapon, but it appears he can't make any moving parts, so it's not like he can just turn his hand into a gun. Now, Paduli, like all Highly members, is mentally unstable big time. He says how he's always wished to be reborn as a weapon so he could feel the flesh and blood of a kill. But thanks to Marina, his dream has come true. So Paduli is off the charts. Anyway, Paduli thinks he's able to sneak up on Henry, but long before he got up behind Henry, Henry already knew he was coming because he was using N. Paduli is right behind Henry and pulls his arm back to attack him, but out of nowhere he's handcuffed. It turns out ever since leaving the hideout, Henry has had a bunch of pigeons around him, and all the pigeons were originally handcuffs. So basically, he's got a bunch of birds that can handcuff people. Also, important to know that the handcuffs are reinforced with Nen, so they're way stronger than normal handcuffs. And while these pigeons are beating these guys, just know that Henry is talking shit. After stopping Paduli, Henry says, "Does your ability even have a point?" The pigeon then swings around and cuffs both of Paduli's hands together. And then Henry says to Corole and Tavaleris, "What about you two? It would make things easier if you all came at me. If you called for help, that would be even better. I have plenty more pigeons." Like, come on, are you kidding? This is why I love Henry. He talks shit while beating your ass with pigeons. Corole and Tavaleris try using regular guns to shoot Henry, but of course that doesn't work. And Henry just calls them stupid for thinking it would work. But then out of nowhere, Paduli lunges at Henry. Paduli has changed his weapon into something new in order to slip out of the cuffs. Henry was caught a little off guard, but was still able to stop Paduli's weapon with his hand. Henry kicks him away and has a pigeon swoop in and handcuff his hand to his ankle. And then after doing that, Henry says, "There, now what are you gonna do?" I just can't take it, man. Imagine, pretty much your only goal in life is to be strong and kill, and you're just getting your ass kicked by a guy using pigeons! Anyway, Tavaleris and Corole had no interest in losing to pigeons, so they run away. And Henry basically says to Paduli, "Hey look, your friends are running away. What are you gonna do now?" Paduli just changes his hand into an axe and says he'll kill him, but Henry basically says he's tired of this and he'll finish it himself. He catches Paduli's hand, brings him down to his knees, and Henry says, "Not gonna happen. Good for you. You learned what it's like to kill and be killed, all at the same time." And then Henry kills Paduli on the spot in front of a bunch of people, and all he has to say is he's annoyed that he had to do it in a public place. Then, to end the chapter off, Corole and Tavaleris run away. Corole says how Henry's pigeons are a problem, and I still can't get over that the problem is pigeons, but I can't lie. Those things are a problem. Then Tavaleris says that they should report back to Marina. Honestly, I don't have too many other thoughts on this chapter. Once again, I really like all of the Nen ability of these Mafia members. I think they're perfect and powerful for what they're involved in. I think this chapter made it clear that Mafia members like Henry and likely Kenny surpass the experience, skill, and power of most of the other Mafia members. I'd even go as far to say that this whole fight with Paduli was to show Henry's standing in the power hierarchy, if you want to think of it like that. But more into that, considering Paduli was level 29, I believe it makes it clear that for Marina's soldiers, their high level means close to nothing. Sure, once they hit level 20, they'll have a Nen ability, but without good understanding of Nen, without experience, and without refining their abilities, these highly members who suddenly unlock a Nen ability are only a threat to non-Nen users. Finally, I think it's important to note how, at least for now, every situation Henry has been put into, he acts calm and confidently. And as future events unfold, I think his confidence and cool-headedness will be important. It could help things go his way, but I also see it backfiring. For example, if he were to, say, interact with Hisoka, acting cool, calm, and collected and confident will not be the greatest way to handle that situation. And if I thought Henry was stronger than he is, then I wouldn't say that's necessarily a problem, but Hisoka is aggressive, bloodthirsty, strong, powerful, and unpredictable. So acting calm and confident is not the best way to handle interacting with him right now. Now on to chapter 392. We pick right back up to Henry next to Paduli's body. There's a crowd of people who saw the fight and they're freaking out. And although a soldier tries to calm them down, it doesn't really work. And this panic is very important because previously we learned from Mizastom that because of killings caused by the Hailey family, the lower decks filled with civilians started to become scared. And Mizastom said that as killings continue, if the panic reaches a certain point, 200,000 people could erupt in mass riots. Now, these civilians were told that the killings were from one person and that one person had been caught, but now people are seeing a gang-related murder. So on top of that, someone mentions that there are still killings happening on the lower floor. And my main point to all this is that Henry's fight didn't only have an impact on him in the highly, but it's also impacted the citizens. His fight has restarted this fire of fear and has caused the lower floors to take another step towards chaos. Then, all of a sudden, Paduli gets up off the ground like nothing happened. Some guards come over and asked what happened. Paduli says he and Henry just bumped into each other, and then some other guys started shooting. The soldiers say that Paduli can leave, and he does. A soldier then asks Henry how much he'd pay for the location of Marina. Henry is shocked by this offer, but immediately says he'd pay $50 million. The soldier wants the money up front, but Henry says fuck that, so they agree to $30 million now and $20 after Henry moves on the info. Henry wants to know how the soldier got this information, and the soldier explains he knew a guy who helped put in all of the ship's wiring during the construction of the Black Whale, and they had put wiring in a room that wasn't on the official blueprint. So if that secret room wasn't for the Shiyu or Char family, then it was for Marina. Henry says that the soldier will have to take him to the hidden room himself, and the soldier says, no problem, I'll take you right to their doorstep. Then Henry ends up leaving to get the money arranged. And just a random thought I had, and not that I think it's super likely, but I just don't fully trust the soldier. I didn't like how suddenly he offered the info to Henry, and I don't like how he was worried about his own safety, but then once Henry agreed to the deal, he was suddenly ready to risk his life. Now, it's very likely that the guard was just ready to risk his life because, well, $50 million. But I think it's not impossible he was already paid off by Marina in some kind of deal to bring her high-ranking Shiyu and Char members. Just a thought. But moving on, we go back to Paduli and we see how he's able to walk and talk when he's dead. So he's being controlled by an ex-Shiyu member named Misha through her post-mortem Nen ability. It's called Zombie Girl, and she spawns anytime a Shiyu member kills someone. She'll spawn and take the body somewhere safe to dispose them, and then she disappears. Once again, this is just a simple ability that I really love. It's super convenient and perfect for someone in the Mafia, because they're not trying to fool other Nen users, they're trying to fool normal citizens and police. This ability is also the 5th or 6th use or example of confirmed post-mortem Nen. The other examples have been P2, Crollo, Hisoka, Prince Camilla, and then it's possible Prince Benjamin's ability involves post-mortem Nen, because he gains the ability of his fallen soldiers, but I don't believe it's been stated that it is indeed a post-mortem Nen ability. But anyway, being another use of post-mortem Nen adds another interesting part of this Nen ability. Also, I feel like it's worth mentioning, because Misha is dead, this seems to be like a post-mortem Nen ability more like P2's, where it's almost a last wish of the user, rather than the type of post-mortem Nen we see from Hisoka. We don't see exactly what Misha does with Paduli's body, but it's implied she's just going to dispose of it. We go back to Lynch and Zakuro, and Zakuro's blood finds someone suspicious. It's not Hisoka, but Lynch ends up punching him and asking if he's Hisoka. The guy says he's not Hisoka and falls to his knees in pain. His friends are basically like, what the hell did you do? And Lynch just says it's Mafia business, shut up or they'll kill him. Zakuro and Lynch are walking and they mention how not knowing Hisoka's abilities is troublesome, but they end up finding another suspicious person, and it's no one other than Hisoka himself. For the first time in, I think, 35 chapters in like 6.5 years, we finally see Hisoka again. Sadly, this means the Hisoka and Illumi theory was wrong. I'm a little bummed because I thought it would be a cool twist, but I'm just happy we're seeing Hisoka. Also, to discuss the new design change to Hisoka. At first, I wasn't so sure, but I've decided it's absolutely perfect. It just fits the theme of the story along with what Hisoka's goals are and his mental state. Lynch walks up to him and asks, "Are you Hisoka?" And he just goes, "And you are?" Lynch at this point pretty much knows it's gotta be him because she seems more serious than before, but she says her name is Lynch and asks for Hisoka's name again. She then throws a punch, but the second it hits Hisoka, she just collapses. Zakuro sees this and is immediately like, oh fuck. Seeing him like this made me laugh because it made me think of this scene of when Madara drops the meteor. Anyway, Hisoka says he couldn't help but throw a counterpunch. And from this ridiculously short interaction, and without getting into too much of a tangent, these Mafia members who can use Nen seem pretty clear that they're nowhere near Hisoka's level. And I really gotta stress this, because the reader is more or less seeing all this from Zakuro and Lynch's perspective. So to us and to them, Lynch's punch landed and she just immediately collapses. Hisoka does throw a counterpunch, but we don't even see him move. So pretty much this just means that for Hisoka, Lynch was moving so slow as he was seeing it all happen, he just couldn't help but to throw a counterpunch. And once again, to our and Zakuro and Lynch's perspective, he didn't even move. That's how fast this guy is moving. And it's not much of a surprise, but it's just a wild comparison. And if for whatever reason that interaction isn't enough to make you think that Hisoka's just out of these guys' leagues, I promise you, if you haven't read, Zakuro is shaking and just sweating bullets. He is absolutely terrified. Not even really from the counterpunch Hisoka gave to Lynch. He's just terrified of Hisoka's aura. And also, Hisoka is very much likely holding a lot of his aura back. Anyway, Hisoka asks Zakuro what he wants, but Zakuro is scared shitless and can only ask once again if he's Hisoka. Hisoka just says, I guess you didn't hear me. I thought I was the one asking questions here. Zakuro is absolutely terrified, but just from sensing his aura, he knows that it has to be Hisoka. Zakuro just starts fearfully telling Hisoka that the Shiyu are looking for him, and if he wants to know more, to come with him. And we don't know what Hisoka's response is, we just see him give a menacing look to Zakuro, who's still terrified. I think it's most likely Hisoka will go, but just to see what's going on, I wouldn't expect any type of alliance to happen, like with the Char family and the Phantom Troupe. Also, once he's there, I don't expect anything but threats and violence, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Hisoka just ends up killing Zakuro. We then move on to some Char members. We start off with Sudanke, who's a fanboy of the Phantom Troupe, and we met him some chapters ago, but he's asking the shop owner questions about gunshots that were heard earlier. The shop owner has connections to soldiers, so he gets information. The shop owner just says that the soldiers say it was nothing, but it does seem like it was a fight involving the Shiyu. He also says that now a gang war has started, all the soldiers will get a gag order, and anyone who would talk for money won't have reliable information. Sudanke then asks if the shop owner has fancy autograph paper, so we can ask for one from the spiders. And this little gag kind of goes on for longer than I thought it needed to, but within this we learn something very, very interesting. There's a shop on the first floor that's for VIPs only, but that shop has all sorts of common goods people might want, and anything they don't have can be requested. And it turns out that there are blimps that go from the mainland to the Black Whale. The shop owner says that shipments stop after the 14th day of travel, and I believe we're on day 10. But all of this is important because this is a really good way for someone with the right connections to get items or people on or off the Black Whale. Now, I can't think of anyone who would want someone or something on or off the boat, but the fact that it could happen seems important to me. It also feels like a weird plot point to add simply as a joke of Sudanke really wanting the spider's autograph. I feel like this was mentioned because this shop and these blimps will have a role to play in the future. I could very well be reading into it too much, but hey, you never know what people like Jing, Periston, and beyond might be planning, or anyone else for that matter. Sudanke ends up leaving and he walks with Kenny, who, if you forgot, is the number 2 of the Char family. Kenny and an unnamed Char member say how it looks like Henry got into a fight, and Kenny says that he and the main group will go check out the area Henry was fighting, but he wants Sudanke and the unnamed man to stick around the current area and look for Hisoka. And once they're done, they should go back to the office and report back to the spiders. Kenny then starts thinking about the current situation with the spiders. He says how after giving them permission to search the 4th floor, he had hoped that they would split up, but instead they're staying in the office. Kenny says that because the hitman that they've been looking for, and as a reminder, that hitman is Luini, but the hitman has put his transportation mark in the office, so the spiders must be waiting for him to come back to attack. And because of of that, Kenny says the spiders have a keen sense of combat. Kenny then compliments how well the spiders have navigated through the 3 Mafia groups and the war that suddenly erupted, and he calls them a cool-headed pack of predators. He says how it'll be very difficult to manipulate the spiders to kill off the Hylia without having Hisoka as a bargaining chip. He then gets a little ahead of himself and says how once the spiders kill Hisoka, they're gonna force their way up to the first floor in looks of treasure. And that's a problem itself, but then there's the added fact that they would get in the middle of the Succession War. So basically, the spiders in Hisoka are a huge problem. But Kenny says he's thinking too far ahead and needs to focus on the current goal, which is find Hisoka. Kenny then talks to the rest of his crew, and in short explains they don't know who any of the Hylia members are, how many there are, and if they can even use Nen. He says that they're looking for Hisoka, and he really stresses how dangerous Hisoka is. He says that Hisoka was a floor master at Heaven's Arena and to not approach him alone. He says to call him whenever they find him. And finally, Kenny basically explains that the Shiyu are one step ahead of them in finding Hisoka. But more or less, it's okay because both of their goals aligned. Find Hisoka, use him to get the spiders to kill the Hylia, then kill the rest of them off. Kenny sends his men off and starts thinking to himself again. He thinks how if Hisoka is capable of killing the Phantom Troupe, then a good option is to later let Hisoka and the spiders just fight it out, and then presumably finish off whoever's left. However, he says that after watching footage from the fight Hisoka had with Chrollo, he says Hisoka likes the odds stacked against him, and everyone involved in this war is too unpredictable. There are some important takeaways from all that. First, I think it's interesting how both Henry and Kenny told their people to wait for them when they find Hisoka, and I don't think it's because Henry and Kenny have some ace up their sleeves to beat Hisoka if it comes to it. I think it's because they're the only ones who'd have any chance on negotiating. However, because it's Hisoka, at the end of the day, I don't think being good at negotiating will help anyone. Next important thing is how much Kenny stressed Hisoka's strength. Just another piece of evidence, if it was even needed, that Hisoka, but also probably other Nen users of his caliber, far surpass these new Nen users we've been seeing. However, that's only for people on the lower decks. I think the soldiers, princes, and hunters on the higher floors are far closer to Hisoka than they are with these Mafia members. It's way more complicated than that, but I'll leave it there for now. Finally, I think it's incredibly dangerous for Kenny to think Hisoka still likes the odds stacked against him. Hisoka has stated himself after his fight with Chrollo that now he will be the one who decides when, where, and who he fights. After his loss to Chrollo, Hisoka in a way fully became himself. He became the bloodthirsty monster he always was, but now he's not holding back for anyone. And on top of that, it appears Hisoka has reached the peak of his Nen abilities. But I think Kenny's line of thinking is dangerous because it will make him predict Hisoka's actions incorrectly. The first type of situation that comes to mind is Kenny is cornered by Hisoka and he says something along the lines of, "I've heard you like a challenge, how about I get some more men in here?" And before, that's something Hisoka would probably fall for. But now, Hisoka is just gonna be like, "You're wasting my time," and just immediately kill Kenny. I'm not saying that exact situation will happen, but that's the type of thing I mean when I say thinking Hisoka still likes the odds stacked against him is dangerous. We then go to the Char office where Phaeton, Nobunaga, and Finks are just chilling. Basically, Nobunaga says that they should get Franklin, and in teams of 2, one group stays in the office while the other group looks for Hisoka, but Finks says that's a bad idea. Then there's knocking on the door, and someone goes to open it, but they're yelled at and told to stop. A guy watching security cameras in a different room calls in the spiders. He shows how there's knocking, but no one's on the camera. While the spiders are in a different room, Luini's hand breaks through his window. Also, if you need a refresher on Luini's Nen ability, pause to read. But Finks says how the attacker could have come at them by surprise, but instead chose to mess with them. The spiders go back into the main room, and everyone who was there had immediately disappeared. Finks is like, where'd they go? And Phaeton just says that if they can't use Nen, they'd stand no chance against a Nen user. Basically, he said that they're deadzo. The guy who was watching the cameras comes out and asks what's going on. But Nobunaga shows some level of kindness and tells him to go back back and lock the door and watch the cameras. Then from inside his window, Luini says, "Hey." He then goes on a little speech about how he's read a lot about the spiders, but they're nothing like he imagined. He says they shouldn't be working with the Char, and instead they should have betrayed them and killed their way to the top floor to take the treasure. Fink says that they're smarter than just killing mindlessly and asks Luini what does he even know about them. Luini basically says that he read their Wikipedia page, but it must have been exaggerating, and he says that he'll edit the page for them. This leads to Nobunaga drawing his sword and saying, "Sure, go ahead. Just say we show no mercy to people who piss us off." And that's the end of the chapter. My biggest takeaway from this is I like how Luini doesn't seem afraid of the spiders at all. I mostly think it's because he's severely underestimating them. But also, I'd like to see if he has any real ability to fight against them. And way earlier, when I said that there might be an exception to how strong people like Zakuro and Lynch and other Marina's soldiers are, well, this fight will either show us that some of these new Nen users can be incredibly strong, or it will just reconfirm what we already know. And it's that a lot of Nen users on the boat have very limited experience in Nen. Many of them created and formed abilities around fighting regular people. Meanwhile, people like Hisoka have lived their entire lives just looking for strong opponents. People like Crollo who have nearly, if not already, perfected their Nen ability. If this fight goes to the death, I'd expect Luini to get brutally killed, but I'd find it extremely interesting if he somehow does serious damage to one of the spiders or even kills one. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd go crazy if he did. I also like how Luini and Sudanke almost have a parallel. They both admire the spiders, but for completely different reasons. Luini admired how they were bloodthirsty killers. Sudanke admires them because they're famous criminals. Also, Luini seems to be disappointed in how the spiders really are, and I think if Sudanke really saw how evil they are, I think he'd also be disappointed. Just a cool way how two different characters view the spiders. I also think Togashi has added all the storylines he wants to right now, and I think he's working on bringing them all together. I'd expect this Mafia war to continue, and as it nears the end, we'll start seeing more of the royal family, but who knows what direction Togashi will go in. It's totally possible the next few chapters will be all about Kurapika and the princes, but we'll just have to wait and see. But that's all I've got for these two newest chapters. I don't have any deeper thoughts as of now, and I just really can't wait for all the chapters we're gonna get. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Post-production comment. If Hisoka were to team up with anyone, this is out there, it's a little wild, but it's a gut feeling. If Hisoka were to team up with anyone, it's gonna be Kurapika. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Hisoka would team up with Illumi. No. Even if it's likely, even if it's way more likely that Hisoka would team up with Illumi, Hisoka's gonna team up with Kurapika, okay? Let me have this dream.